Good evening. This is the Tuesday, May 27th, 2025 meeting of the Select Board. I'm Beth Cassavant. I am serving as the chair this evening, as our chair, Teresa Flynn, is at a school event for her daughter who's a graduating senior. We'll take a moment just to introduce ourselves.
Carlos Garcia.
Michelle Conlon.
And Greg Richards.
Kevin Mizikar, Town Manager.
Justin Dobson, Assistant to the Town Manager.
Okay, and again, I'm Beth Cassavant, and we will get started with approving the bills, payrolls, and warrants.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item number 2 on the agenda is to review and act to approve the minutes of the May 13th, 2025 meeting, the May 19th, 2025 meeting, which was the annual town meeting Monday night, and then the May 20th, 2025 annual town meeting, which was our Tuesday session town meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item number 3 is announcements and reports. I have just a couple. I actually had to ask Mr. Garcia if town meeting was only last week, but it was only last week. So we haven't convened since then, and I just wanted to thank Mr. Mizikar for his work in preparing for town meeting. It is, as we say, our Super Bowl, and there's a lot of work that goes into getting ready for that. So thank you to you and your staff for all of that effort. To Taylor Galusha for the weekly emails. She not only had to do annual town meeting, but like a month before that, she also had the special town meeting. So it was a very busy time for her, keeping town meeting members informed. And then I think the pre-recorded video did a lot to help town meeting members be prepared. So that walkthrough of the articles is very helpful and something that I'm glad you've continued. People seemed well informed, and I thought that town meeting went well. We have a recap coming further on the agenda. I also wanted to just recognize our recreation department for their work in yesterday's Memorial Day observance. We had beautiful weather for the parade, and also for the speaker, who was our own Staff Sergeant Chris White from the police department, who shared remarks reflecting on his service in the military. So that was really wonderful to have him there. And then we continued on to Mountain View Cemetery, where we recognized the names of some of our fallen heroes. So thank you for that. One last thing that I have is that a notice will be posted on the town website and social media after this meeting, so it'll be up tomorrow. For the 2 at-large members, resident members for the high school building committee, as we'll probably mention in our later agenda item. That building committee was formed at town meeting last week, and so there will be 2 resident members as part of that. The deadline for sending your letter of interest will be June 5th, close of business. And I think you have one announcement, Mr. Garcia.
I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. In recognition of Pride Month in June, I am thrilled to see that on Saturday, June 7th at 9 a.m., there will be a Shrewsbury Pride 5K hosted by Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services and the First Congregational Church. This is the first that the town has ever had. Event proceeds will be shared with SYFS to facilitate programs to directly support LGBTQ+ youth and families, and with the First Congregational Church to support ongoing outreach programs in the wider community. The 5K will start and finish at Oak Middle School, and to learn more and to register, you can visit shrewsburypride5k.org.
Great. Any other announcements this evening? All right, I'll turn it over to you. Town Manager's report.
Good evening, board members. Good evening, everyone. A couple updates from me. I just want to recognize 2 employees. First, Gosha Stolarska, our solid waste coordinator, who received her Master's of Public Administration from Clark University over the past few weeks. So I recognize her work in continued education to the benefit of not only herself, but all town residents. And then also John Hamilton, who's our Assistant Division Manager in Public Buildings, received his Certified Procurement Official designation through the Inspector General's office at the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So congratulations to both of them, and applaud their continuing education efforts. I also just wanted to just generally, we've received a lot of calls across town departments regarding blasting that's going on associated with the construction of the new UPS facility off of Centec Boulevard. We are aware of the concerns. They're mainly coming from the Stony Hill neighborhood, and we recognize obviously those are the closest residents. All the blasting, although it is very frequent and is expected to continue at least weekly through August, is being done under close coordination with not only the Shrewsbury Fire Department, but also the Grafton Fire Department and the State Fire Marshal's Office. So we have seismic readers up in the area to make sure none of the blasts that actually occur exceed the seismic limitations. Again, I just make everyone aware, I'm not asking folks to stop calling. We're happy to field those calls and talk about what's going on and the readings that we're seeing, and address those concerns as best that we can. But I just wanted to make everyone aware that we are fully aware and we're working to ensure that everything is done within the state guidelines and state laws on the matter. And then finally this evening, I'm really happy to share that we started the first ever Shrewsbury Resident Academy. It's underway right now. It started at 5 o'clock. It's about a 3-hour session over 4 different evenings. Tonight we have administration and finance team that's over there. I was fortunate to be able to kick that off at 5 o'clock this evening. We have really engaged residents who are excited to be in the room, and we're happy for their interest in the town and learning more. Many of them indicated that they wanted to get more involved and be on boards and committees. A variety of tenures living in the community. It was just great to be in the room with all the energy. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any questions? All right, we'll move on to item number 5, which is public comment pursuant to Select Board Policy 31 to offer citizens the opportunity to provide public comments during Select Board meetings on matters within the board's authority. We have one person this evening who has identified themselves as wanting to speak. Sam Rajwani is a Shrewsbury High School class of 2026 student, and he's here regarding a civic action project concerning fluoride in the town's drinking water. So I'll invite you up to wherever you're comfortable, either the podium or the table, and have you introduce yourself and give your comments.
All right, awesome. Is this good?
Sure.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Sam Rajwani. I'm a current junior at Shrewsbury High School. Recently I started my civic action project about water fluoridation, and as you can see from me standing here, it's gotten a bit out of hand. Next slide, please. So I'm here to briefly share with you all some things I've learned about water fluoridation on the local, national, and international levels that I feel are pretty important for everyone to know. Next slide, please. So before I start off, I'll admit that I've done a lot of research about this, so much in fact that I'm pretty sure that you guys want to say that the Board of Health, not the Board of Selectmen, oversees water fluoridation in our town. Next slide, please. And for most towns, that's 100% right, but the town of Shrewsbury is actually an exception. In our case, the upward adjustment of fluoride was ordered by Shrewsbury's town meeting in 1952, when $4,000 was appropriated to the Board of Selectmen so that they could manage the addition of sodium fluoride to the water supply. Because the original decision to fluoridate Shrewsbury water was made during a Shrewsbury town meeting, the Board of Health doesn't actually have the oversight responsibility for fluoride in Shrewsbury's water supply. Rather, the Board of Selectmen, who are also the water commissioners, do. And so the main reason that I'm here today is just to talk about some of what I feel are the problems with water fluoridation. So number one is dental fluorosis, which is a very common condition that's primarily seen in children, and it ranges in severity from pretty mild to severe. In 2010, about 41% of children ages 12 to 15 had dental fluorosis. It's permanent, and the damage that it does to enamel cannot be reversed. It is mostly cosmetic, although some studies have been done that link dental fluorosis in children in some communities to skeletal fluorosis in older people. Dental fluorosis, although cosmetic, does show that fluoride causes tissue damage. And next, lower IQs. There was a meta-analysis done in 2012 by Philippe Grandjean and Anna Choi at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health that associated water fluoridation with lower IQ scores. In the compilation of 27 studies, 8,000 school-aged children were analyzed, and all but one study found that higher fluoride content in water could negatively affect cognitive development. I believe in higher fluoridated areas, children had IQ scored about 7 points lower on IQ tests than those in lower fluoridated areas. And there's also a literature review published by the National Library of Medicine that states that fluoride may act as a neurotoxicant during developmental periods. And third, neurobehavioral problems. There was a study done by the Keck School of Medicine of USC that shows that a 0.68 milligram per liter increase in fluoride exposure for pregnant women is associated with nearly double the likelihood of these women's children showing neurobehavioral problems and internalizing symptoms such as emotional reactivity, anxiety, and somatic complaints. Notably, the women in these studies were exposed to fluoride levels that were no higher than what women living in fluoridated regions of the United States, like Shrewsbury, would be exposed to. And the fourth reason, to me, is perhaps the most important, which is that fluoride in the water is an unregulated resource. So a small child could drink 8 glasses of water a day, and they would already be exceeding the upper limit of fluoride that they're supposed to get according to the National Institute of Health. And this doesn't even factor in if a child was eating a food such as macaroni and cheese, in which macaroni was boiled in Shrewsbury water. And 8-year-old children, by these same standards, could be getting more than the upper amount of fluoride, even if they just drink 8 glasses of Shrewsbury water and accidentally swallow a quarter teaspoon of toothpaste. And of course, even if this won't happen to most kids, it's still problematic because it could happen to any kid and bring with it a slew of health problems, including the ones I, of course, have listed, as well as potential hindrances to the pineal glands, thyroid function, and bone damage. Of course, the benefits of water fluoridation, like the benefit is that it's proven to prevent tooth decay. That's pretty well known. And I at least thought that that was definitely the case when I went in and started this project, although I am now a little less sure. I'm wondering if it really does prevent tooth decay, and there's a statistic. This graph, of course, shows data collected by the World Health Organization about the average amount of decayed, missing, and filled teeth in 12-year-old children from different countries. As you can see from this graph, as time has gone on, the amount of decayed, missing, and filled teeth in children has shown that it doesn't really vary much between fluoridated nations and non-fluoridated ones. In fact, some non-fluoridated nations actually have lower averages. And on top of this, there have been studies done, including one by Kate Featherstone in 1988, that shows that fluoride provides its benefits mainly when it is being topically exposed to teeth, such as when you would brush them with toothpaste. Like, after all, if you're not supposed to swallow toothpaste because of the fluoride in it, why would we swallow water that contains fluoride? And also, there was a study of over 39,000 children done by the National Institute of Dental Research, one of the largest studies done. And in 1989, it showed little difference in tooth decay rate among children in fluoridated and non-fluoridated areas. And also, the studies that launched fluoridation, which were done between 1945 and 1955, were, according to a statistician from the University of California at Davis, rich in fallacies, improper design, invalid use of statistical methods, omissions of contrary data, and just plain muddle-headedness and hebitude. And full transparency, I actually don't know what those last couple of words mean, but I don't think they're good. And so the reason that I'm bringing this all up is, of course, because I think that water fluoridation could be dangerous, especially to young children. All of the studies that I've referenced in this slideshow show the effects of fluoride purely on younger children. I didn't even consult any animal studies. What I'm showing you is purely the effects that fluoride has on developing children. As such, I think that it would be helpful for the Board of Selectmen to revisit the addition of fluoride to town drinking water, or at the very least, add a warning to Shrewsbury's annual drinking water quality report in order to educate people and hopefully protect pregnant women and young children from some of the consequences of water fluoridation. Here's my works cited page. Do you guys have any questions?
Board members, typically for public comment, we are here to listen. I understand this is a civic action project for a class at school, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. So, understanding that this is a learning experience, right? Like, if there are any comments that anyone would like to make, I will open it up to board members.
No pressure.
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
Sam, just want to thank you for being here. It's not easy to study a problem, study a challenge, and come up with a solution. And I think that this is evidence that you've done some work in this, and so really just appreciate you coming here and presenting, making your case to us. It's not an easy task, so I commend you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sam, I'd say similarly, I appreciate you coming in because it isn't easy to come in front of a crowd and go through this. But maybe just a couple questions. Like, how many other communities in Massachusetts fluorinate versus do not?
I couldn't give you an exact number. I know I've looked at it, but it's pretty, like Worcester I know doesn't, Boylston doesn't. It's kind of, I don't want to say it's 50-50 because I'm not entirely sure, but there's definitely a hearty amount of fluoridated and non-fluoridated communities in Massachusetts.
And you have any idea, like, what was the reasons why either they stopped or was some of them, did they never add fluoride to the water? Do you know?
So I know for Worcester, I'm pretty sure the water, it hasn't been fluoridated for a while. I honestly don't know exactly why they stopped, but I know that it's difficult, sort of. It is like a town decision for them, I think.
Okay. I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming in and speaking with us and for your presentation. You did a really, really nice job putting that together, and I appreciate your comments.
Thank you. Sorry, I just had one last question. Would you consider having like a public hearing on the issue to hear from the residents and see if that's like, if they would want fluoride in the water?
So I know that we have, as water commissioners, a responsibility for rate setting and also for the maintenance of the water system infrastructure. But it is my understanding, as I know you pointed out in your presentation, that the public hearing process for fluoride removal would be through the Board of Health. Of course, I could turn it over to you. I've been through this once as a select board member and once as a town meeting member. So I know many on this board have not participated in the fluoride discussion as select board members, but perhaps as town meeting members. Did you have anything you wanted to add on that?
No, just affirm that the process for removal of fluoride from the water is through the Board of Health.
Okay, I didn't know that. I don't know why I thought it was because of the fact that it happened, that it was appropriated during, like the money was appropriated during a town meeting, that it was the Board of Selectmen's responsibility. I don't know. That's just what I found, but.
No, understood, yep.
Yeah. Thank you. I know it can be challenging to sort of trace who ultimately has the authority to either add or remove, but it does fall firmly with the Board of Health. And I think they've just started a public comment. I think I saw it their last meeting, right? They have a public comment period, not useful for you right now because you're in school at 8 o'clock in the morning when they meet, but perhaps in the summer, if that's something you'd be interested in doing. Is there a process? Is it on the website?
It's the same, yeah.
It's the same as this? Okay, so you would just need to notify the chair of the Board of Health that you'd like to come in and speak, and perhaps you can tweak this presentation, for the Board of Health, and I'm sure that they would be willing to hear you.
Yeah, maybe. I saw actually something, sorry, I don't know, this is definitely more than 5 minutes, but I saw something in some sort of, I think it was this source. It was in I think it was something the Board of Health said in 2016 where they said that it was something that sort of the Shrewsbury public and more like town meeting dealt with. I don't know. I got that from the Board of Health.
In 2016, I
share.
believe it did not, the citizens petition article, and again, I was a town meeting member in 2016 and not a select board member, but I do believe it went to town meeting in 2016 and did not pass.
Of course.
So it stopped there. Do you?
It was also, it went to town meeting, I believe in 2021. We were in the high school. It was during like sort of the
that the one where
height
it
of
got
the pandemic. We were in, I just remember we were in the high school, like sitting in desks in the field house. And so it was a town meeting article a few years back. But it is, it can go through, I think it can go through, town meeting would be ultimately the ones that would make the decision, and then I believe that it would go.
Lies with the Board of Health.
So it could, yeah, so they could, I'm sorry, you're right, it's like
It's pretty complicated how the
Yeah.
general laws played out from 1952. Then there was a referendum process that was established in 1958, which was ultimately rescinded. but it lies within Chapter 111, Section 8C of the general laws. That's where the process sits. You do also have to consider the home rule charter of Massachusetts municipalities when taking this in, and how that interacts with existing state laws. So, you know, it is complicated, and I also applaud you for the work that you've done, and regardless of, you know, let's define the process if, you know, this is a conversation that the community wants to have, and we can work through it.
So it would be a Board of Health thing, is what I'm hearing?
Correct.
Okay. Okay,
Thank you.
I think that's all then.
Okay, thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
presentation. Thank you. All right, item number 6 is under meetings and hearings. It's a 7:05 continued public hearing to review and act to consider adjusting the pricing associated with the solid waste enterprise, including pay-as-you-throw, pay-at-trash bag fees, and related charges. So this item is a continued public hearing from our meeting on May 13th. The agenda item requests the board's approval of price adjustments associated with the solid waste enterprise, including the pay-as-you-throw trash bag fees. The last time the fees were adjusted for the town's solid waste enterprise was in 2020, and at that time, the board reviewed a fiscal analysis of the solid waste enterprise to maintain the 50-50 revenue balance between the solid waste enterprise fund and the tax levy. So what that means in simple terms is that it's half and half, tax levy and blue bag bulk waste stickers. So I know that we have a presentation, so we will hear that presentation and then open it up to comments if anyone is here for that this evening.
So I'll walk through. Justin, you can advance the slide. Thank you. So just a high-level overview, the solid waste program here in Shrewsbury, pay-as-you-throw, services almost 11,000 households. And in the average year, that includes the consumption of 741,000 blue bags. As the chair or vice chair just said, the goal of the program since its inception has been to maintain a cost-sharing strategy between the general tax levy, the property tax, and the fees that are raised directly through this program. The fees that are raised through this program, because it's managed through an enterprise account, can only be expended on costs associated with this program. But of course, the key to maintaining the 50-50 split is so that the tax levy can be used to subsidize the cost of the bags, but also be available for other important purposes through other departments as well. So the rates that we are proposing, and I'll walk through this in more detail as I go through my slides, would be a small bag of $1.25 and a large bag of $2.54. That's what we'll recommend to the board at the end of the hearing this evening. And then as we look at the broad impact, so this would be about a $16 increase per year or 30 cents per week. So Justin, if you could roll through. So let's get into some details on what the program looks like. So the program now sits at a little over $40 million a year on average if we look at the following 5-year period. Whenever we've run this analysis, we're not assuming significant growth in either direction. So we are using the baseline average consumption of bags of $741,000 a year. So if we didn't make any changes, by the time we got to 2030, the tax levy would be covering 16% of the total cost of the program, and the bags would be picking up 44%. Again, it is our proposal that we continue the 50-50 balance approximately for the funding model. We think that the bags, the approach that we're using in maintaining a level assumption for bags takes a lot of variability out of it and provides a little bit of conservative estimates into the model as we look at this 5-year period. What we're also using is an assumption associated with the tipping fee. So the tipping fee is the charge that we incur when our contracted solid waste trucks go to the incinerator at Wheelabrator and Millbury and dump the trash in there. There's a per ton fee, and that is, we're assuming a 5% increase on that for fiscal year 26, and then 2% annually thereafter. It is a CPI adjusted contract rate that we have with Win Waste. So how do we look at this? So rate strategy and equity. So when we look at the cradle to grave costs of a bag, it does actually cost us about $4.75 for a small bag and $5.09 for a large bag. That's the total cost. That's, we're looking at the overall cost of the program, in-house administration costs, the cost of the collection at the curb through our contractor, Casella. And what we're proposing is what's there adjacent to those numbers, $1.25 and $2.54 for the bag rates respectively, which I mentioned. Certainly that's not the perfect 50-50 split, but in total, tax revenues would be offset by 50% of program fees to bring this to a nice balance that we desire. So where are we at right now? The small bags cost $1.10. We're proposing to increase them by 15 cents. The large bags are $2.25, and we're looking to increase them up to $2.54. Beyond that, we're also proposing a multi-year approach to this in order to maintain that split on an annual basis. So in 4 consecutive years thereafter, that would require 10 and then 10% next year, and then 3 7% increases. And I've included the total run out for the entire period, including the current year, in the chart here at the bottom. So where we sit with small bags right now is $1.10 per bag. That would increase over the course if we followed this incremental process through 2030. Up to $1.64, so 54 cents. And then, of course, the large bags would increase from their current $2.25 up to $3.33 over that time period. What we're also looking to implement, like we have when we've adjusted all rates over the last 2 or 3 years, is some equity program based on income. Understanding not every individual or household within the community has the same ability to pay based on their income. For the 200 or so households that meet the eligibility requirements for financial considerations through the assessor's office for tax exemptions, we would hold those rates for those bags at the current level over the course of this 6-year period. The one difference is those bags would have to be purchased here at the town hall or at the DPW service counter, wherever that may be over this time frame, rather than purchasing them at the store. So when we look at the impact over time, right now we know the average household is paying about $120.75 for bags over the cost of a year, and that will increase to $179. So we understand that, again, this is not as easy for all residents, so we are proposing to implement the equity program along with this. Those considerations are already included within the rates that we're providing. So if that wasn't something that we wanted to pursue, then we'd have to, make some minor adjustments to the rate. So where are we at? We're here in the public hearing this evening. The board will receive comments and take into consideration any of those comments over the course of the next 2 weeks. We can make any adjustments that is desired, and then we'll be back to the board, as is your traditional process, the following meeting on June 10th for your consideration based on our recommendation and any conversations and changes based upon the feedback that we have. We are looking to implement this rate on July 1st so we can get a full year and manage the program accordingly for fiscal year 26. And we'll do everything that we can to provide sufficient outreach through social media and any other means that we can. So future considerations, Justin, if you could move to the next slide. We would like to continue our biannual rate reviews, shorten the cycle so we're not here where we are right now, looking to make up several years of cost increases, both for our hauling contract and the tipping fees in a narrow window of time. Hopefully we can get this down to what has been a traditional CPI, more of a 2 or 3% adjustment on an annual basis. Again, which has been the steady and stable approach that the board has recommended in other similar matters. Just continue to obviously monitor those cost increases and market trends over time. We know we're ending year one of a 5-year contract with Casella, so those costs are known. And just do everything we can through the final 3 bullets there to inform residents of the opportunities that they have through the recycling programs, explore grants and partnerships to mitigate costs, and reinforce our public education requirements to mitigate total costs and what is disposed of at the curb. So I'll just land on the final slide here. I think it probably summarizes everything as much as possible as we move into any comments that the board will receive this evening. And happy to take any questions from you.
Before we move to the public hearing, are there any questions from board members?
I have a few
Carmen.
questions. Thank you. For the eligible households with the equity program, how would we inform those households that they do have that option? And is there sort of a plan for, if we're holding that rate for the 6 years, what sort of happens after the 6 years is up?
Yeah. So I think we should consider how long we hold the rate for, not because it will have, a significant negative impact from those 200 households, but it should stay somewhat in lockstep with the overall rate. So it is our recommendation, and the rates that we've built has it held steady for this period, but that's something that we may want to consider and discuss, because just like we're trying to get away from the base rates, we would probably have to make kind of a sizable adjustments if we do decide to adjust that for 2031 or whatever year that would be. So that's kind of a question mark that we wanted to discuss with you this evening. How do we approach that program since it is new? Whenever it comes to notifications, I think we could do a targeted approach because we know those households that receive those exemptions already through the assessor's office, and then just message that as best as we could in the general advertisements and notifications that we can.
Okay. And then, if I may, I have another question. Thank you. One of the things that, something that's been a discussion kind of point over the last couple of years is a composting program. Are there options currently within the community for residents to, I believe that there's not, but residents to compost the kitchen materials? I know we have a yard waste program, but are there, if you
So we have a partnership, but it's not like a free program through the town. So we facilitate a relationship between a private provider, I think it's called Black Earth, if I'm not mistaken. That's all we have right now. If we are able to fit out a new DPW facility, we do have hopes of expanded opportunities for a more community-based composting program at that facility.
Okay. And is that something, if I may continue, is that something that has been discussed with, our current vendors or anything like that on, implementing a town-wide program through our current hauler or anything like that?
Not that I'm aware of. I wouldn't be surprised if we've had some of those conversations. I'm just not privy to Casella's concerns, if they have any, or any other haulers' concerns.
Okay.
But I know it's a good way. It's good for the residents. It's good for the town because food waste, as you know, is one of the heaviest by volume aspects that go into the blue bags right now. So diverting more away from that would be beneficial. I don't know how detailed the conversations have been yet, but I can follow up with you on that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Just to follow up on your Black Earth comment, so I'm like a huge proponent of them. I can't believe the amount of blue bags that I've reduced just since we've started doing Black Earth composting. And it's, it would be a lower rate if a certain number of Shrewsbury residents were to participate in the program. It's incredible. Like, I just never take out the kitchen trash anymore because most of it's just food waste. So I highly recommend anything we can do or the sustainability committee can do to help message out, because I think that's really one way that residents could see a reduction in their spending on blue bags is to do more composting. Any other questions before we open it up?
Yeah, you want to go?
You beat me.
I just have a question on the retailer. So do they actually get any profit from selling a bag?
They do not.
And so when you change the price of the bag, is it just their acquisition cost of the bag? So existing bags, are they supposed to change price on the effective date?
They do, yes.
Okay.
We provide them notification and so we have a common UPC, one for
Yeah.
each that's registered, and they just have to adjust that in their system. And, they're invoiced for the bags that they receive, so that's where that part of the transaction, that's where we receive our money from, when they receive the bags. It's invoiced,
Yeah.
and they update their UPC and collect that funding.
Okay.
Mr. Garcia?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did have a question for the equity program. Was trying to understand, I wonder if you could just clarify, there was two different figures that I saw for the cost savings annually for the eligible families. One that was $15.81 and another one that was $29.67.
Yeah, so it is 1580.81. The 29 was a different iteration of the analysis, one of the different options. It was all based on the same math, which is what is the FY '26 proposed rate and what is the 25 rate? And that 29 number just, it was a work in progress.
Okay.
Whenever we released the draft report.
I got it. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to be heard on this issue? Invite you up to the podium and ask you to just state your name and address, please.
Brian Costello, 398 Walnut Street. On this issue, with the composting, I completely agree, by the way. Is there a way that, I don't know, this board or something can encourage the town, maybe the town website to publish more about that? I know I'm trying to do it at my house, but I didn't know there was even a partnership with like maybe Casella or somebody else. I think maybe publishing that more on the town website, on Facebook or wherever, like more public, social media would be really helpful, because it does obviously reduce tremendously the amount that goes in the blue bag. So just a thought. And the other one is on the helping people out. That is it based primarily on income?
It is, yeah, income and asset levels, correct.
And obviously you have to sign up for it, I assume.
So the approach that we generally use is, when households are granted that through the tax abatement program in the assessor's office, that's what we're driving, the 200 households and the income levels and the threshold, since it's a state established program.
Yeah, again, I know we can only do so much outreach, but I'm assuming, I know there are probably folks that don't even know that exists either, and I know it's hard, but if there's anything we can do to kind of assist those people in town, I think it would be great, because even large families, the worry I have is, obviously, if you can't afford this, you might illegally dump, right? And which none of us want, right? And we do hear about that, especially up by, what's that road over there by, going towards Boylston, where people always used to dump stuff, right? Just to kind of figure out how we can alleviate that. Just on my own street last week, there was a big pile of trash and garbage that somebody just threw on the side of the road. And obviously, we want to avoid that. I don't know. I suppose people that are going to do that aren't going to listen anyway. But if there's any way we can figure out how to solve that, especially for elderly and large families with small kids, because I'm assuming there's a lot of diapers and heavy things that go in those things too. But that's it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Okay. I had a question on the equity program, and I guess when we raised the rates the last time, I remember talking about how we hadn't done it before, since like the program started in 2008 or 2000, and then we waited, I think it was 2020, and we raised the rates, and it was like this huge shock to the system, right? So I definitely am in favor of smaller increments each year, but my concern is, like, if we're holding those rates steady, there's going to be a big shock at the end for people who are at those lower rates.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just not sure that is that the approach we should take, or should there be a smaller increase year over year, so that it's
Yep.
Or every 2.5, 3 year, I don't know, should we split the
Yeah.
difference somehow?
I mean, one thing that we could do is set the, subsidized rate as a percentage of the general rate, so it automatically moves, and we kind of don't have to think about it again unless we want to change it from 15 to 20% or whatever it is, so. I'd be happy to run that and make sure it doesn't overly influence the model that we've presented here when we come back.
I just feel like our goal with so many things is trying to avoid that
Spike.
big spike, right? And so this seems like it could be a larger spike, so I would really appreciate seeing the option of having it increase a small amount over time.
Is there any way, Kevin, I know that there is penalty clauses in the contract that may not have been invoked, but could those funds be specifically guided if they were ever utilized to offset the costs of the subsidized bags?
I'll have to look into that, yep. Just to make sure we could
Yeah,
apply that, yeah.
exactly.
Yep.
Apply it 1-to-1. So if you ever would apply that penalty clause for performance, you would say that would go to offset the cost, and maybe that would help mitigate that 6-year increase.
Yep.
Sorry. How often, do we have like a standard or guideline of how often we review the cost of, the current program and the bags that we're using? Is there, is this something, I just wouldn't want, when the program was implemented and then, rates weren't changed for 12 years, is there a way, we can make sure that this stays on our radar year after year so that we're not having to find ourselves in a position where we may have to raise the rate significantly?
So we could consider, like we've done with the water rates, the board enacting a multi-year rate based upon a recommendation that we have, or we could come back to you annually, however you wanted to do it. But we certainly agree that we want to be back more frequently if we want to do an annual rate, because it will require this to stay at the 50/50, and we may learn things over the next 2 or 3 years that you may say you don't want to set a multi-year rate. We're happy to come back, but this is what we see right now as maintaining that good balance, and how we want to approach the rate setting process. We're happy to talk with you about.
I almost would want to see it reviewed annually so that, we don't find ourselves in an imbalance where, the town is footing the bill where it's coming out of, costs that could go to other programming. And it's, of course, I don't want to be passing more costs on to residents, but it's sort of a, you're paying for what you use, right? So it's almost like a pay as you throw, right?
Equitable.
So yeah, it's a very equitable program as it is already, and so keeping that balance, just being able to leave important funding for other programming that we have within the community.
Okay.
Thanks.
If we wouldn't have to have a public hearing if we weren't changing the rates, right? We could just
Correct.
review it.
Right.
And if there's no change, then we just know that we're in a good place and.
Right. Absolutely.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we are not doing any voting on this until next week. All right. Item number 7 is a 7:10 public hearing to review and act on the common victuals license application of Big Apple Shrewsbury, Inc., DBA Big Apple Breakfast, 378 Maple Avenue, Unit 3107. Someone joining us?
Yes, the owners are seated in the back.
Oh, perfect. Would you like to come up to the table and join us? Oh, God, no. Sorry. Okay. No, you can't hide. Come on up.
We don't bite.
You can hide behind the table. It's gonna be great. We're happy to see you. Like, you're opening a new restaurant. This is a good thing. No, you can sit
at
right
the
down. Be
table.
comfortable.
Okay.
Oh, if you're more comfortable at the podium, that's fine.
No,
Wherever
no,
you want to
I'd
go.
rather here.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So we are here to hear a little bit more about what you're planning to do. We're very excited. We know this is your second location.
Yes.
so-
So for the past 15 years, we have a breakfast place in Marlborough, which we moved to Shrewsbury 4 years ago. And then we were kind of looking at spots like to eat and stuff, and we were like, hey, this needs a breakfast place. So we were like, hey, John, let's look at some place. So we went to that buffet over there, and we saw there was like a whole bunch of places. So we were like, yeah, let's do it. So we did it, and it's done.
It's wonderful. I know the community is really excited to have
we
you
are
here.
too.
We've heard lots of good things about your Marlboro location. It looks like your hours of operation are pretty consistent.
Yes, from
6
6
a.m. to 2 p.m., 7 days a week, it looks like.
Yes, and holidays too, we're open.
Okay.
We're just closed for Christmas and Thanksgiving. That's it. The rest, we're all open.
And I understand you've just been doing some takeout while you're waiting for this to.
We're doing takeout, which it was surprised because we got like 60 orders. So we were happy because we didn't do any advertising or anything, but people were ordering it online and stuff and going in, walking in, ordering. They couldn't eat inside, but we're hoping for that for tomorrow. So
Board members, any questions?
no.
I just have a comment. Thrilled that you're here, and grateful that you're moving into town with this exciting establishment. I just wanted to personally thank you. I have celiac disease, so all the gluten-free options are very much appreciated.
Wow, and that's surprising that you said, because my daughter was diagnosed in August with, she has diabetes type 1.
Yeah.
And after 2 months, we got that she had celiac disease as well. So we did all her process and stuff, and it came negative. And we promised that everybody that stepped in the restaurant of Shrewsbury that had celiac disease will not pay for their bill. So we did everything that we could. We have a special grill, we have a special fryer, we have a special everything that could be for people that have celiac. They will not pay anything at the restaurant for the rest of her lives that we're in Shrewsbury.
That means a lot because
Yes.
I also have type 1 diabetes, so
You do, yes.
it's similar story, and it's always challenging going to restaurants
Yes,
and having
yes,
to pay
so
the
you'll be
upcharge,
safe
so.
and don't worry, because we'll try our best of people that have celiac to work with them as much as possible.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
I can tell you're already going to be a wonderful community partner.
Yes.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to be heard on this matter? All right, I'm not seeing anyone. Board members, no more questions?
I'd just like to say welcome to Shrewsbury and thank
Thank
you so
you.
much. That's incredibly kind. And like Madam Chair said, we can already tell that you're going to be incredible asset to our community. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, board members, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, what's the pleasure of the board?
I move the board approve the common vitular application of Big Apple Shrewsbury, Inc., doing business as Big Apple Breakfast, located at 378 Maple Ave, Unit 3107.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations. See that?
Thank
It was
you.
great at the table. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 8, under new business, is to review and discuss the May 19th, 2025 annual town meeting, which took place last week on Monday and Tuesday. We had 2 very productive, albeit long, evenings at the Oak Middle School. So I guess I'll turn it to you if you had anything you wanted to start us off with, Mr. Mizikar.
No, as you acknowledged before, I just wanted to thank all the hard work that staff put into getting us to town meeting. It is a process that we really get underway in late October. I have the privilege to be able to answer questions of town meeting members, but that's only because staff does such a good job of getting everyone up to speed and keeping us in the loop of everything that they need done at town meeting. So, yeah, pleased with the outcome. Enjoyed the engagement from town meeting members, and look forward to turning the page and working on the special town meeting in the fall.
Okay,
But
very good.
I don't have any business action updates except for what you had previously referenced with regards to the school building committee. We do have a deadline with the MSBA to provide that information to them by the 13th, so we will need the board to take action on the 10th, so having the deadline close on June 5th would be very helpful to
Right, that way
us.
we get the materials in advance, can review them, and have our decisions ready for that meeting. Board members, any comments on town meeting?
I have a couple.
Go ahead.
I know there was a lot of comment around the electronic voting, and I guess one of the questions or comments is, like, what is the next steps in that process? Like, who ultimately has the purview or the ability to say mandate the use of the devices, or can you walk us through what is the next steps and throughout that process?
So first and foremost, it will go to the State Attorney General's office for review. We don't expect any legal challenges of that. Once we get their feedback, which they have a 90-day window of time from our notification, I would engage directly with the moderator just to kind of take his temperature and see how he was going to approach it. With some substitute motions and all that stuff, but I think the final outcome, and I haven't gone back and looked at the red line version, is that there still is some discretion by the moderator. But ultimately, I think that town meeting has spoken through their vote, and everyone seems to be interested in both the practical and philosophical aspects of electronic voting. And working with the moderator for as long as I have, I would expect that, you know, he'll work with us to implement it, and we'll be up and running. We don't think it's we'll be ready for the special town meeting, I guess is the easiest way to put it.
Other comments?
Yeah,
Mr.
I wanted
Garcia?
to follow up on Mr. Richards' question. I think during the discussion, the moderator had made mention of an implementation committee. So I guess through you, Mr. Manager, once you get more information about that, if you could keep us apprised of what that will look like.
That's a good reminder. We'll reach out and see if that is going to be the approach that we take, and make sure that even before we buy the equipment, that we have an understanding of what will happen there.
Thank you.
Did I see that funding was secured by Senator Moore for the electronic voting equipment
Yes.
Is that
in the Senate so far?
in the
It's
Senate?
gotta
And
make us-
Representative Kane would be advocating for the same thing at the House?
That's correct.
Yeah, so that's just another really great example, I think, to point out of how our state delegation works together
Right.
to try to get some funds for Shrewsbury to help us with our goals and achieve our initiatives in town.
I mean, if that's the case, then, you know, we have almost 12 years of annual recurring costs in the bank, unless we want to reappropriate those funds for something else.
Okay, great. Anyone else? All right, we'll move on. Item number 9 is to review and act on the road closure request from Weston and Sampson for a portion of Gulf Street for the installation of a sewer manhole from June 23rd, 2025 to June 27th, 2025, from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. We have,
Yep. Tim, do you want to come up?
you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, please?
Tim Maroney, Water and Sewer Superintendent for the town.
Pat Cotton, Weston and Sampson.
Thank you.
So we just wanted to discuss and explain what the road closure would be for. It's an ongoing infiltration and inflow removal project. It's a town project. It would actually be on the 24th of June, which is a Tuesday, to avoid the Monday, which is a trash pickup day, to avoid any inconvenience for the residents within that area. So it's basically from, the dig repair manhole installation would be at about, located around 12 Gulf Street. That's between Boylston Circle and Wheelock Street. Traffic would be allowed in and out from both ends throughout the construction. We only anticipate it really taking one day on that Tuesday, but wanted to add a couple extra days just for contingency, just should there be any weather, or just to make sure that the work can be conducted in the area.
Okay. How will we notify residents of this?
We'll work through a code red process, target the street specifically, and do more generalized.
I know the electronic sign right now is on Prospect Street. Do we have more than one? Yeah, that we can get out there. 'Cause even though that sign's been there for weeks, I still forget the road's closed. Down there. So. Any questions, board members? All right. Take a motion.
I move the board approve the road closure request from Weston and Sampson for a portion of Gulf Street for the installation of a sewer manhole from June 24th, 2025 to June 27th, 2025, from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Second.
Before you vote, is it still your preference to have the Monday, or there's no possible way you do it because of a trash day?
No, Tuesdays is
Tuesday's
completely
fine.
fine with the contractor.
Is that correct?
Yep,
I know he said it, I just want to make sure that you didn't want the flexibility.
Yep.
thank you.
Did she second it?
Yeah.
I did.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Item number 10 is to review and act on the road closure request from Palini Dasi, India Heritage Foundation, for a parade beginning at 100 Maple Avenue and concluding at 226R Grafton Street on Saturday, July 5th, 2025, from 11 a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m. I don't believe we need anybody here for this article. We've got, or for this article, for this item. So this is the second annual Chariot Parade hosted by the India Heritage Foundation. The first was held last year in July of '24. And the parade aims to increase the community's awareness of the India Heritage Foundation and its work. So there is a map in here. It seems our fire has approved, our police has looked at it, and everything seems to be in order. So what's the pleasure of the board?
I did have a question.
Sure.
About this one. I know the applicant is not here, but I assumed that the route changing is more for visibility for them.
I can answer to that. Originally, when I spoke with the organizers last year, the original idea was to go through the town center.
Yeah.
But I think the day that they were proposing last year, we were concerned it would conflict with just overall traffic in the town center. So wanted to test it out first by doing the municipal drive option. But yes, it's for visibility purposes.
That makes sense. Well,
Well,
I'm.
wait, hold on, before you do that,
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry. I think we talked about this last year, right? How they have, there's 8 officers staffing the parade, and that is at the cost of the parade organizers, not at the town. So I just wanted to remind residents of that. And now you can go ahead and make your motion.
I move the board approve the road closure request for Palini Dasi, India Heritage Foundation, for the parade as proposed on Saturday, July 5th, 2025, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Item number 11 is to review and act on the road closure request from Carol McWilliams, Martha McKenna, and Kathy Simonian for a block party on Colton Lane on Sunday, June 1st, 2025, from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. Any questions? We've done this one before.
I move the board approve the road closure request for a block party on Colton Lane on Sunday, June 1st, 2025, from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item number 12 is to review and act to adopt the vote prepared by bond counsel for borrowing $9,806,249 through the Mass Clean Water Trust under loan number CW-23-22 and sign note closing documents. Mr. Mizikar, would you like to tell us anything about this?
Sure. So just for clarification, the Clean Water Trust is a sewer funding entity that we are very grateful to be invited into and receive funding through, because loans are fixed at 1.5% interest. And the state revolving fund goes out from time to time, not every year, but I think every other year to acquire financing. And in the interim, there's a 0% loan. So just really low interest rates, and we pursue this any opportunity that we get when the state revolving fund rate is lower than the market rate. So this project specifically will upgrade Rolfe Avenue and Maple Avenue pump stations and the force main that connects the two of them and then runs through the center. This is the most critical aspect of our overall sewer system. It receives on average about 80% of the total flow through the sewer system on a daily basis. And it is also the largest force main that we have in our sewer infrastructure system. So it's a major project. It is very costly, $9.8 million. The costs associated with this are within the overall financial plan of the water, or excuse me, the sewer rates and the sewer commission's 5-year sewer rate setting process that they have in place. So it won't increase those beyond what the commissioners have set the rates for fiscal year '26. Happy to answer any questions.
This is a really important project. I remember in 2020, you telling me about this and the need for replacing it, and that if it were to fail, there would be no sewer in town. And then it was kind of terrifying. So I'm glad to see that we're able to get this started. Are there any questions from other board members?
What is the timeline that we anticipate, if, assuming we move forward with this? What do we anticipate the timeline for the project being?
I believe it's at least 2 years to do all aspects of it. The work within the pump stations, no one will really notice, but Maple Avenue will be rather significant, while we do that section. So, about 2 years in total.
Will there be, disruptions in the road,
Yes.
digging up, so,
For the force main part of it, there will be.
okay.
That is correct.
All right, and is it, I'm sorry, just what length is it the entire length of Maple Ave?
Through
Or
the I believe it's up through the center. Yep. So you get to the top of to the hill, and then it goes gravity towards Northborough down through Main Street.
Okay,
Right.
all right, thank you.
So I will just maybe state, it's not stating the obvious. We know this is a state road, Maple Avenue. The state got ahead of us and did their repaving work a couple years ago without giving us advance notice to be able to do this project. So unfortunately, we do have to open up the road, but we will, restore the road given its heavy travel.
Okay,
But the bids under this were already done, been awarded, and this is the funding just to go actually execute the
Yeah,
project,
yeah,
correct?
so we've been out to bid. These are actual construction costs, et cetera.
Yep.
Any other questions?
I move the board adopt the vote prepared by bond counsel for borrowing $9,806,249 through the Mass Clean Water Trust under loan number CW 2322, and to sign the note closing documents.
second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item number 13 is to review and possibly act on a new development agreement with Pulte Homes of New England LLC for 33 to 69 Green Street. Mr. Miskar, did you want to give us
Sure.
some background?
So we have, the board originally entered into agreement with Pulte Homes for a friendly 40B or a local initiative program, a LIP program application. And Pulte has since filed with the planning board to utilize the MBTA zoning that was put in place at last fall's special town meeting. And we've discussed with the board the significance and the change of approach that Pulte is taking through this new initiative, which is available to them by right. So the by right process affords Pulte more opportunity, but we know Pulte was interested in maintaining a development agreement with the community to continue to set aside the area for the construction of a roadway in the future if we find funding to be able to do that. However, one of the biggest challenges associated with this project is the reduction of the number of affordable homes that we will receive. So we felt that it was important to go back and reconsider the fees associated, because we often provide fee discounts when affordable houses are being created beyond what's required in our inclusionary aspects of our zoning bylaw. So mainly through the 40B process. So those fees have been removed. Pulte has continued to honor their commitment to providing us with land. They've also made further commitments to make improvements within the public ways associated with and adjacent to their public infrastructure work that they need to do, and extending the water line to their location. So rather significant changes. We're reducing the fee, we're eliminating fee reductions for Pulte. They're continuing to provide the land to us, and just reshaping the scope and description of the project, since it has changed from the 300 units to the 150 units that are now proposed again, under the MBTA Transit-Oriented Development Overlay District.
Thank you. Questions or comments?
Yeah, I have quite a few comments. Yeah, I've been kind of following this from the beginning, and I guess my biggest, there's a few things. First thing is, when this first started back February of 2023, it was clear at the time that Pulte did not desire to do 40B. I mean, there was a lot of, comments saying that the only reason they're doing 40B is because the zoning was not conducive to the project they were proposing, and that essentially that as a result of the mix of the different zones across the parcel, there was no viable options to develop the parcel under existing zoning. And in March of this year, there was also comments from Pulte about that they typically don't choose a 40B program, and if there's an option to go outside, it's always more preferable. However, they did not go into the first meeting to the Zoning Board of Appeals was not until December 18th of 2023. So they had 10 months. And in that 10-month period, they never came, my understanding, in front of the town manager to ask for, or in front of the planning department to ask for different zoning. They never said, is there something else we can do? They continued down the 40B path. Then, just to reiterate, so I guess one of the questions would be, why didn't they reach out to look at the zoning? Then, as part of these programs, you look at what the impact to Shrewsbury is. So as you mentioned, the impact to Shrewsbury, as I see it, based off of the fiscal impact studies that were provided, anywhere between a loss of $358,000 and $500,000 a year. And that came from the numbers, Mr. Mizikar, that you had presented between 30, I think there was a net difference of 30 school-age children. And then based off of the mix of the units was just the service costs as well as the revenue from taxes. So from a Shrewsbury perspective, we're essentially losing $500,000 a year compared with the original 40B program between the MBTA program. We have an increase in school children. We lost 52 affordable housing units. And not only that, we also lost what at the time was talked about middle housing options, meaning there was a price point of those units that we don't have in town, meaning there was a significant number of the units were below the average single-family tax average single-family home value of $706,000. These were in the $300,000 to $400,000 range. So a lot of negatives for Shrewsbury, but from Pulte, there's a lot of positives. I looked, and it looked like their gross profit. They're a publicly traded company. You can look it up. So gross margins 27.5%. So for the new program, effectively in a 3-year period, which is I believe what they stated would take to develop it, they'll be making somewhere around $25.3 million. The old plan under 40B, because 40B restricts your gross margin to 20%, they would only be making $22.1 million, and that's over 6 years. So it takes them 3 years longer to get the money. They're making, effectively, they would have made $3.2 million less. So when the question was asked by Ms. Flynn, when she asked, is this a more profitable project? The answer wasn't immediately yes, but I believe it's yes, based off the numbers I see, by about $3.2 million more. So they're increasing their profit. They're realizing that in 3 years instead of 6, they eliminate the administrative burden of the 40B. And for all that, the only thing I believe we're getting is $25,000, which to me is a little bit, I say, insulting. That's 0.1% or less than 0.1% of the gross margin or the gross from this project. But one of their founding principles, which their CEO states, is to do the right thing. And he stated, Ryan Marshall, doing the right thing is not just good business, it's the foundation of meaningful work that moves you. So in my mind, wouldn't the right thing to do to make a more significant contribution for that Green Street Connector Road? Because it's my belief, while we did get the grant money for the design, without some additional outside funding, that isn't a road that we're going to be able to connect. And it's always been stated multiple times that that's a need for the community. That road has been something on our radar. So for me, my comment is, based off of the financials, the $25,000 is I think, a little bit insulting to Shrewsbury. So that's my comments.
Comments? don't disagree with you. I know, Mr. Petrie, you're in the room. I don't know if you're interested in coming up to the table and having a bit of a discussion with us.
Good evening, Essex Petrie, Pulte Homes. Good evening. So I'm not sure I can comment specifically on the financial numbers mentioned by Board Member Richards without having the opportunity to look at anything that was referenced. But as far as some of the negatives that were mentioned regarding the town of Shrewsbury, I didn't hear, it was the MBTA zoning opportunity had been discussed and brought up by Pulte very much back in February. But we were informed that this property was not going to be chosen to be part of what was originally deemed the boundaries for this town of Shrewsbury's MBTA zoning. So we were told that that was not an option. So the other options for the existing zoning, it's a split, as you mentioned. I believe it's the industrial district, which is also part of the Route 20 overlay district, and residential A and residential B. And so we were limited as far as what would be possible to build under that zoning. The town then, we went through the 40B comp permit process with Zoning Board of Appeal. We worked with the community. We were successful in getting that comp permit, and at the same time, while we're getting that comp permit, the town of Shrewsbury decided to change the direction of the town's MBTA zoning boundary and decided to put that parcel within what would then now be voted on as part of the MBTA zoning district. That went to town vote. The town voted to successfully pass that in November. It was then brought up for a citizens petition, and the town then again, the residents voted to again approve that zoning for that parcel. And so we had held off, being at that point we were the property owners of that property. It made sense to us, being that our property was being rezoned or considered for rezoning by the town, to delay what we were going to advance as far as the project on that property until we understood fully what it meant for us as the property owner. So once it passed the first time, we quickly got wind. I think there were time requirements. We held off because there was a citizen petition filed, so we waited for that vote to happen, the second vote. And when it passed the second time, we did a deeper dive into what that meant for us as the property owner and what we were now capable of building by right on that property. And so we came up with a new approach to a project on that property and presented it to kind of similar process as we did in the original, met with certain departments and town officials and walked through our thoughts, made adjustments based on that original feedback with town offices and municipal officials, and then officially filed and presented our project to the planning board. And that's the project that we are currently with planning and with Concom reviewing. We have a planning board meeting next week, the 5th, and we've met with them a number of times. We're pretty close, I think anyways, to getting to a position where everyone's comfortable with it. And similarly, we've met with Concom twice, and we're waiting for our order of conditions on it based on final approval from planning board.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Petrie?
I'm still, forgive me, I've looked at this a lot. And actually, full disclosure, was part of the no campaign against MBTA. I mean, some of the timing, I guess, just help me understand, because the zoning was changed in June of 2024, and you did not get final zoning board of appeals sign off until July. So you knew before you actually got sign off from zoning board of appeals that your property was going to be in the MBTA zone.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand how you're saying the zoning was changed in June. It required a town meeting vote.
But it was
in November.
submitted, and you were aware that it was submitted.
Yes, Yep.
as part of that.
But it
So-
wasn't officially changed
not
until the
officially,
town meeting
not
voted on it,
officially.
though. So it wasn't changed until November, when it was
Officially,
approved, correct. So we wanted, once we got our comp permit from ZBA, and we understood what the language, because that zoning, if you remember the process of developing the MBTA zoning language, it went through some changes, the specifics language. Once the boundaries of the MBTA zoning, the boundaries of it were identified to include what was referred to as the Emerald Run parcel, there were still some changes being made to the details of the language up until the very last minute. And there was a pre-approval, I forget the name of the actual board or commission that EOHLC brings on to do a final kind of look-see of the zoning language to make sure that it would pass muster with the Attorney General. And there were some changes to the language up until that point. So we weren't fully sure what the details of that were going to be, and then it was never final until November.
I understand, but I think maybe to be clear, is that on multiple occasions, you were very specific about Pulte does not want to do 40B. You have your own funding sources. You don't want the funding sources. There's limitations on profitability. It's not what you guys want to do. Like, you'll look every other possible manner, but you never asked about just going and saying, would we be able to say, take to town meeting, a change of the existing zoning as it was, like you mentioned, the mix of the parcels, and go and actually make a request to change them, to zone them, to allow you to develop that outside of the 40B, is my point. Or you could have built that same program, as you call it, the one today, either A, under the 40B, or if you would have had a conversation with the planning department or whoever and saying, can we bring or modify the zoning of these parcels so that we wouldn't have to do 40B. The only reason I'm saying this is because you're going through all these year of zoning board of appeals with the saying that we're going to provide affordable housing to the community. We're going to have 25% here. We're partnering with you. We're doing a development agreement. But I feel like the whole time you never really wanted to do it, and you said you never really wanted to do it. So that's my struggle.
I guess I'm not sure how to get past the struggle for you, in the sense that requesting a zoning change without a mechanism on a parcel of land is not a small lift. So if I'm a property owner in the town of Shrewsbury and I just decide that I want to change the zoning on my property, that's an incredibly massive lift to undertake, and it's a huge risk, because I couldn't even think of what the odds are that you actually get that passed. But to think that I would then, as the property owner, could bring to town meeting to request as a citizen or an owner of the parcel, it would need to be brought up by me through town meeting warrant to get approved by town meeting voting members. And I don't know if forgive me, and maybe somebody else on this board knows if that's a majority or if that's a supermajority that you would need to get that passed. But that's a huge lift. That's not even a consideration.
We've done it for warehouses. It just happened.
Yep.
It just happened.
Twice. I'm not
Mr. Rich.
suggesting that it.
Yeah, sorry.
We can just, a moment.
I mean,
Thank you.
that's not something, I mean, I appreciate the concerns. I agree with a lot of what Mr. Richards is saying. I mean, that's not something that from a staff level we would ever recommend. If they would have came to us and say, can we change this to a residential parcel? Because it has been our intent to have that property developed as commercial, right? And it's commercially zoned. That's what our zoning bylaw says. That's much more desirable, as we all talk about, than residential, and that's why it's zoned that way. So I don't think it did come up. I don't think it was requested, but I can tell you from my perspective, I would have never advised the select board to rezone that if it would have come up. But it's kind of water under the bridge, but I just wanted to say that, because it isn't our practice to change commercially zoned properties to residentially zoned properties.
Correct. And then I agree with what you're saying. Right? We would not have entertained the thought of changing a commercially zoned property to residentially zoned property, only because we strive to increase our commercial base. And we all know the reaction the community has when we have a residential development coming in to town. It's never a good one. Any other questions or comments while we have Mr. Petrie here? Could someone explain to me the sidewalk easement? In the 40B, it said no specific sidewalk easement included. And then in the new agreement, it's a non-exclusive easement for future sidewalk construction along Green Street. And I'm just,
Sure.
need a little clarification on that,
So
please.
really simply, it's the frontage of Pulte's property for the entire length of Green Street. They are setting aside land for future use by the town to install a sidewalk.
So with the full width mill and overlay of Green Street and the stormwater management, there's no sidewalk going in with that?
That is correct.
And that is not something that would be considered or could be considered?
It was part of the process that we engaged in with Pulte, and we couldn't find a path forward with that aspect of it.
All right, thank you. I just do want to just remind the public that some of the things that we heard as this project went through as a 40B, concern from residents over the height of the buildings and the density of the original plan. And I know that we are talking a lot about negatives this evening, but I do think for the residents who surround the parcel, the height of the buildings being lower and the fewer number of units will result in less density and less traffic, which I do think is a positive for, I think it was the Appaloosa Drive neighborhood that was very vocal as this went through the ZBA process. So, I mean, I try to look for a silver lining when I can, and
I appreciate that, and I just, yeah.
any other questions or comments? Mr. Richards, are you all set? I know I cut you off to let the
No, no,
manager
no.
interject. If you have anything else you wanted to
No, I
add,
just-
now would be a great time.
No, like I said, I think, unfortunately, I don't see us getting that connector road ever built without some additional support from Pulte.
The road will be a heavy lift for sure, and I know that there might be some state grant assistance.
Try. Yep.
Maybe. It could be years away before we get that done. All right, if there's no further comments or questions, I'll take a motion from the board.
I move the board sign the amended development agreement with Pulte Homes of New England LLC for the proposed project Emerald Run located at 33 through 69 Green Street.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Item number 14 is to review and act to authorize, oh, thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Petrie. Sorry about that.
Well, that's all right.
Moved right on to
Thank
item
you.
14. Appreciate you being here this evening. Thanks.
Very much.
Item number 14 is to review and act to authorize the chair to sign letters of support for the fiscal year 2026 Community One Stop for Growth applications. Let's see here. So we have one application for $250,000 to fund the completion of an updated master plan. The current master plan was completed in 2016, and the master plan is a long-range comprehensive plan that guides our future development. So that's one. And then the second is an application for $50,000 to fund a study that will have an in-depth site-specific focus on development opportunities and challenges for properties located along Route 20 in the Edgemere Overlay Zoning District. And I know that we have Chris McGoldrick here, our Director of Planning and Economic Development, and we'd love to hear more about these grant opportunities.
Thank you. Thank you, members of the board, for having me here this evening. Chris McGoldrick, Director of Planning and Economic Development. So these are two applications for funding to the Community One Stop application process. As noted, one is for the master plan update, and the other is for a comprehensive review of the Edgemere Village Gateway area. Both of these proposals went through the expression of interest round, which is consistent with the process for Community One Stop. Received feedback and recommendations on which specific criteria to target with those grant applications and the project. So these applications, are responsive to that feedback and were amended in relation to the feedback that was received. From that, the master plan is largely in the process that has previously been reviewed by this board through the economic or expression of interest round. We did refine the numbers by receiving some preliminary estimates from interested firms that placed it in a range, pretty broad range, and reviewed some other communities' recent master plan updates to try to refine that number a little bit further. And then the Edgemere Village Gateway area project was originally just for the diner site, but in response to that and some of the feedback that was received, in order to make it a competitive grant, we've expanded that project out to look at the larger neighborhood, to be more in line with the grant applications that were provided. So with that, happy to answer any questions. We are looking for letters of support and the authorization to submit these to the Community One-Stop application.
Questions? Ms. Conlon?
Thank you. I have questions about the Edgemere overlay. Does the assessment include like environmental impact on development of that area?
The scope isn't entirely refined, so some of those details we would look at, if awarded the grant and working with the full project scope. I think it may be tough to put any in-depth environmental review into the scope as we have it now, but I'm happy to work to try and include some of that review as well.
All right. And then, if I may, another one. How will the public engagement process play out in this, and how will the residents in the adjacent neighborhoods be incorporated into this plan?
Yeah, thank you. So public engagement for both of these pieces, I think, or for both of these projects, is going to be a major focus of what we're looking at. So if I can, I would like to speak to both of those. So the master plan process, we're looking at a very robust application round, community engagement process, trying to kind of break the mold of the traditional kind of meeting in a regular room, and try to break into some more informal spaces as well to provide a more inclusive experience and really engage with residents in that vision. I anticipate we'll have a similar process and public engagement with the Edgemere Village Gateway project, specifically looking at the residential neighborhoods. But it is more of an economic focus, so we will be also engaging with businesses along that route, as well as some kind of data collection and regional markets. That will also dovetail with the town-wide economic plan that we are currently doing with RKG. So there's a lot of overlap, and I think we'll be doing a lot of community engagement for all three of those processes, and we're happy to kind of blend that community engagement and make sure that we're including it across those initiatives.
Anyone else?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. McGoldrick. Could you walk us through a timeline for when you may hear back on the applications, and then perhaps contingency planning if we're unsuccessful with those?
Yeah, thank you. So with the Community One-Stop program, it's actually a fairly quick turnaround time. I do anticipate that closer to the fall that we will have that review back from the state. Happy to get that specific date of when they're providing that feedback, and I'll provide that to the board. But once that's received, I think we can move very quickly, if we're awarded, to get some RFPs put together and really hit the ground running on those process. The master plan process typically takes about 12 months, so it would be a longer process. I would say 12 to 15 months. Certainly the Edgemere process, I think, would be a little bit more accelerated as a smaller piece. So probably around 3 to 6 months for that project. In terms of contingencies, we do not have a contingency for Edgemere. If we're not awarded, we will look at other options, but at this time there's been no evaluation of alternatives for that process, other than what we're covering already with the existing town-wide economic plan. In terms of the master plan, we did authorize up to 200,000 at town meeting for that. So that is held in the planning board budget account. So we could potentially go ahead with that, given our quotes. That 200,000 cap is going to limit how much engagement we can do, so we may have to look at other contingencies in order to do the robust public engagement that we would really like to achieve.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Okay.
I'm good for now.
Noted in the applications that we are eligible for these because we are an MBTA community, so this would have been 2 grants we would have not been eligible for, I guess.
That's correct.
Any other questions or comments?
Just one clarification, more of my own knowledge. The diner site, that's still town-owned property?
Correct.
Okay. And so, as part of that, it is figuring out how to redevelop that under this grant? I know it's more broad, but it would be specifically also what potentially we would do with that land that's still there.
Correct. It'd be redevelopment or reuse, so we would look at all options that are available to the town, and again, base that on some of the market studies to see what's most viable for the community and their objectives.
Okay.
All right. Motion?
Yes, sorry. I move the board authorize the chair to sign a letter of support for the fiscal year 2026 Community One Stop for Growth application for a master plan update.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Right, item number 15.
And then-
Oh, thank you.
sorry.
Oh, sorry, there's
There's
more.
two. There's
Sorry.
two.
You're right. There's 2.
So I move the board authorize the chair to sign a letter of support for the fiscal year 2026 Community One Stop for Growth application for the Edgemere Village Gateway Study.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McGoldrick.
Thank you.
Item number 15 is to review and act on the one-day wine license application of Abigail Scaff of Broken Creek Vineyard for the Food Truck Festival on June 6, 2025, from 2 p.m. to 8:30 p.m.
No questions?
Pretty
Okay, so-
straightforward, I think. This is for our food truck.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And then item number 16, similar, it's to review and act on the one-day beer license application of Jonathan Muldoon of Clover Road Brewing Company for the Food Truck Festival on June 6th, 2025, from 2 p.m. to 8:30 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, that brings us to correspondence. Our first item of correspondence is an email dated May 9th, 2025, from Karen Moriarty, Keegan Worlin LLP, regarding the 2025 Climate Compliance Plan of Eversource Gas Company of Massachusetts. Another email, item 18, dated May 13th, 2025, from Karen Moriarty, Keegan Worlin LLP, regarding the N-Star Electric Company, DBA Eversource Energy, DPU 25 through 56, notice of filing and request for comments. Item number 19 is an email dated May 13th from Paige Zapiga, Environmental Planning Group, regarding EEA number 16926, FEIR Route 20 Corridor Improvement Project. And then item number 20 is an email dated May 13th, 2025, from Don Nelson, 23 Halandro Drive, regarding the poor conditions of Walnut Street and Floral Street. I know that this was passed along to Mr. McInerney, who is our DPW director, and the response was that Floral Street is scheduled for repaving this summer, and that is strategically planned during the school break to minimize disruption. Walnut Street is scheduled for repaving during the 2026 paving season, and in the interim, our crews will continue to address potholes and other roadway issues to maintain safe travel until full repaving projects are completed. So I appreciate the response from Mr. Baldinger, because I think you sent that, so thank you. And then the last item is an email dated May 18th, 2025, from George Smith, 33 Clue Street, regarding a reminder for the Shrewsbury Community Animal Hospital regarding zoning requirements, and We often get emails from Mr. Smith around holiday weekend times, requesting that we remind the Shrewsbury Animal Hospital that they are not to have their dogs outside prior to, I think it's 8 a.m. on Sundays and holidays, per their zoning requirements. And so hopefully that was addressed, and we did not get an email saying that there was a lot of barking on Sunday or Monday, so I guess that's a good sign. Anything else to come before the board this evening? All right, then I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, and the meeting is adjourned.